miscellaneous provisions, they're generally boilerplate stuff, not anything you really need to focus on. The one thing that we will tend to add, and again, it depends on the client and the industry that we're working in, is a non-solicitation. Especially if, I'm staffing people or it's a startup company and we're integral to actually getting up off the ground. Um, Typically you're going to put one of your better people. You're going to, maybe someone you've invested a lot of time and money into developing. And, you just want to say that you can't just go hire all my people. I'm not here to be a staffing company for you. I'm not charging you staffing rates. This is not a staffing arrangement. So I try to add that. Some industries, it's a little more important than others. I don't want to point fingers and name names, but if you're in an industry where your people are valuable and the expertise that you're bringing to the table is valuable, you want to make sure that you're just not leaving an open door. And if you feel like it might be a scenario where they might want to pull your people or hire your people, you might want to consider, adding that kind of language that says, okay, if you're going to hire someone, this is what you will pay me for that person, just like you would see in any kind of staffing arrangement when you use a staffing company. So you can find a billion examples of language on the internet for that, but it's a consideration, and we do add that to all of our service agreements in certain spaces to ensure that if you're going to poach somebody from me, you're going to pay the price, because as a service provider, you invest a lot of time and money in finding these people and cultivating them and keeping them busy and developing them. So you want to protect your assets as a service provider, for sure. Then you get down to the schedule of attachments. Typically what we see in schedules, and we've touched on all this, is the insurance requirements. Again, we'll flip through that. Typically there's going to be 8 or 10 different types of insurances on some of the bigger MSAs. Most times you can strike them out if it's something that doesn't apply. As a landman, you don't need to have, intercontinental oceaneering ship maintenance insurance, I mean,
Watercraft is a big one too.
watercraft is the best one. Yeah. Unless you're going to be bass fishing while you billing a day rate, you don't need it. So typical, what we see as standard is, general liability, workman's compensation insurance, auto insurance. You see some E&O, professional liability insurance requirements more and more. Don't get me on my rant about that as a landman, but is what it is. So you'll see those things. Those are typical and standard. You just want to make sure you have enough to cover that, whatever the requirements are. And I would say from a practical standpoint, if it's some absurd amount, $10 million, and you strike it out to $5 million of general liability, or umbrella policy or whatever it might be, most of the times they'll work with that, so you have a little freedom there. And then the rest of the other exhibits that we tend to see are the work orders. And that's where really that's where your rates are set out. That's where your expense and reimbursement policy is. I can say of all the years that I've been doing this and all the clients that we work for, that when things go south, it's because of the work order. It's because of the rate schedule. It's because of the expense and reimbursement policy in the rates in that work order, and your maybe compliance or non-compliance with it. That's where it gets you. It's always in those things that are, you said this and you did that, in our space, right? So I have put a ton of emphasis on it. We have a whole process. When we sign an MSA, this is the rate schedule. This is that. It goes straight to someone. It goes in the system so that, we adhere to that. Do things fall through the cracks? Absolutely. Most of the time when it falls through the cracks is because you're moving people on and off of jobs. You're cycling from one project to another. You maybe started the project or the relationship with your client as a field landman doing title, and then they hire you to do due diligence, and you got to bring in an in-house landman whose day rate is $100 higher. And then the hectic chaos of providing your services, you put that person on there and all of a sudden you're out of compliance, right? And that company a year later or 6 months later does an audit, and Dudley was billing $100 a day for this person, more than they were authorized to do. Well, it's not that you were cheating the system. It's just you got caught up in doing the work. So pay attention to it. The expense reimbursement is a big deal. I've had 10-year relationships with clients go south because, we build a 20-man job at $35 meal reimbursement instead of 25. Or we were trucking people, sending people to some remote place, and we billed more mobilization miles than we should have. It's those little things that'll just kill you. And I'm super passionate about it because I had it happen last week on a job, a pipeline project where, pipeline job for typical upstream, exploration and development client that we had, and they needed us to do a pipeline. So we put pipeline hats on, we put pipeline project managers on it, and right-of-way agents on it, and they rolled under their normal course of business for billing you using a per diem as opposed to $30 a day for meals. And you can only bill X amount of miles to get to the job site, and you can't bill for weekends and all these things in our work order that were specific to a certain type of work that we blew through and just dropped the ball and didn't adhere to that because we put a different hat on. So things went south. Client was all pissed off and upset at us, and I had to eat crow. So yeah, you know what? We botched it. We were operating within industry standards for right of way, but that's not what our MSA read, and that's not what the work order read. It ended up costing us a lot of money. It cost my landmen a lot of money. We all had to eat a little bit, take a haircut, and it could have very much been avoidable.